In a candid moment, Dustin Hoffman has finally spoken out about the death of his longtime friend and Hollywood legend, Gene Hackman. For years, fans have wondered what happened to Hackman after he abruptly stepped away from the spotlight. And now, Hoffman is opening up to share the shocking truth behind Hackman's disappearance. Was it just a quiet retreat from Hollywood or something more profound? If you're a fan of Gene Hackman or Dustin Hoffman, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss out on more exciting videos revealing untold stories from the film industry. Share your thoughts on Hackman's departure in the comments below this video. Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman, two names that once dominated Hollywood, two cinematic icons that everyone in the industry had to admire. But for decades, there was an undeniable truth. Hoffman rarely spoke about Hackman. Even though they came from the same place, shared tough days when they first entered the entertainment industry, and both reached the heights of Hollywood, there was always an unexplained gap between them. A silence that stretched to the point of becoming a mystery. People would hear Hoffman talk about Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Jack Nicholson, or even younger actors like Leonardo DiCaprio, but Gene Hackman was seldom mentioned. Hollywood is a place full of untold stories, where rumors can be exaggerated beyond the truth. And for many years, Hoffman's silence about Hackman sparked a series of speculations. Was there a major conflict between them? Or had they simply lost contact over time? Was there an unspoken rivalry between the two former friends? The answer was never revealed. Even when Hackman decided to retire from the screen in 2004, disappearing from Hollywood to live a reclusive life, Hoffman remained silent. There were no congratulations, no emotional posts, and no mention of Gene Hackman in interviews. Many journalists tried to inquire, but when asked, Hoffman always dodged the question. He could talk for hours about the films Rain Man or The Graduate. But when Hackman's name came up, he would simply smile and change the subject. A strange reaction that everyone noticed. What about Hackman? He never mentioned Hoffman either. But with Hackman, that was not surprising. He was a private person, despised the glitz of Hollywood, and preferred a quiet life. However, for Hoffman, an open individual always ready to share a story, that silence became a big question mark. In 2004, Hackman appeared in the film Welcome to Mooseport, a comedy that was not successful. No one expected it to be his final appearance on screen. There was no official retirement announcement, no grand press conference, no emotional farewell to the audience. Hackman simply disappeared. One day, he left Hollywood and never returned. All that was known was that he moved to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to live a simple life with his wife, Betsy Arakawa. Occasionally, some paparazzi photos of Hackman cycling or shopping would appear in the news. Each time, fans would buzz, "What's Gene Hackman up to now?" But he never answered, and neither did Dustin Hoffman. As the years passed, the silence continued. People gradually accepted that maybe there was nothing significant between them, just two old colleagues who had lost touch. But then, news about Gene Hackman shocked the world. Hollywood was shaken. A wave of tributes poured in from all corners. Actors who had worked with Hackman expressed their respect. Clint Eastwood, Robert Duvall, Barbra Streisand, and many others. Everyone was talking about him, except for one person, Dustin Hoffman. In the early days, his silence raised even more questions. What would he say? Or would he remain silent like he had for all those years? And then, finally, he spoke up. Hoffman's words were unlike any other tribute. They were not filled with respect or fond memories. There were no stories of friendship or admiration. Instead, it was a confession. Dustin Hoffman admitted that he was wrong, that there was something between them, something he had always avoided, something he should have addressed long ago. But now, it was too late. No one knows exactly what happened between them, but clearly, it was not just time or the busyness of life. It was something deeper, a wound that had never been healed. And when Dustin Hoffman finally spoke up, he realized there was nothing he could change anymore. His years of silence had said it all. If you found the story of Gene Hackman and Dustin Hoffman interesting, don't forget to leave a like and share this video with your friends. Leave a comment below to let us know your thoughts on the secrets behind Hackman's departure. And make sure to hit subscribe so you won't miss out on more exciting videos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. If anyone had witnessed Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman in the early years of their careers, they would never have imagined that their relationship would become so complicated. Before becoming top stars in Hollywood, they were close friends, companions who shared struggles, fought for their artistic dreams, and went through tough times when no one knew their names. But that friendship didn't last forever. Over time, competition, differing career perspectives, and perhaps both of their larger-than-life egos pushed them to opposite sides. And when Gene Hackman left Hollywood, Dustin Hoffman remained silent about his old friend. A silence that lasted for decades, only broken when it was already too late. New York, the 1950s. Both Hoffman and Hackman were young, ambitious men, driven by the desire to become great actors. They met while attending a course at the Pasadena Playhouse, one of the most prestigious acting schools at the time. Neither of them had an easy start. Without wealthy families or powerful connections in the industry, Hoffman, with his small frame and face that didn't fit the Hollywood heartthrob mold, was often underestimated. According to some sources, a teacher at Pasadena Playhouse even bluntly told him that he didn't have the qualities to become a leading actor. In contrast, Gene Hackman, with his muscular build, strong attitude, and all-American face, quickly made an impression. However, they became friends, sharing the tough days together. They rented a small apartment, lived day by day with odd jobs, and always encouraged each other that one day they would succeed. However, their careers began to take different paths. Hackman started landing notable roles in the early 1960s. He quickly proved his talent and became one of the most sought-after actors. His breakthrough role in Bonnie and Clyde, 1967, not only earned him an Oscar nomination, but also placed him among Hollywood's rising stars. Meanwhile, Hoffman continued to struggle with smaller roles, still searching for his big break while Hackman began to bask in the spotlight. Perhaps that was the first moment when the distance between them began to appear. No longer were they two companions on a difficult journey, but one had reached the destination, while the other was still running the race. In 1967, Hoffman's opportunity finally came with the role of Benjamin Braddock in The Graduate. This role catapulted him to the top, earning him an Oscar nomination for Best Actor and officially establishing him as one of Hollywood's leading faces. However, even as Hoffman gained the same level of fame as Hackman, something between them had changed. As both became stars, people began to notice that Hoffman and Hackman rarely appeared together, despite their previously close relationship. There were no fun behind-the-scenes stories, no compliments exchanged in the media, only an unexplainable distance. Some rumors suggested that Hoffman and Hackman had a falling out while competing for major roles. Both were strong-willed actors, pursuing iconic roles, and this may have created an underlying rivalry between them. Once an industry insider mentioned that they were friends, but also rivals. And in Hollywood, competition can turn friendship into something entirely different. Hoffman, with his humorous personality and versatile acting style, often chose complex roles that required psychological depth. Hackman, on the other hand, embodied strength and realism, always exuding a decisive energy on screen. This difference in their approaches made them two completely contrasting types of actors, and perhaps that's why they never truly became close again. There was no official confirmation about the rift between the two, but their silence was the clearest evidence. Hoffman could talk about all his colleagues, from Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, to Meryl Streep, but never mentioned Hackman. Hackman, although rarely seen in the media, also never mentioned Hoffman. And then, when Gene Hackman passed away, Dustin Hoffman finally spoke up. But instead of an emotional eulogy as many had expected, he simply said, "I should have reached out to him." There were no stories of fond memories, no praise for Hackman's talent. Just a brief sentence, a late acknowledgement that there had been something between them that was never resolved. At this point, all the long-standing rumors seemed to have an answer. Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman were not just two Hollywood legends. They were once close friends, two people who stood by each other, but were swept up in the whirlwind of careers, fame, and decisions that couldn't be undone. And in the end, when one of them passed, the other realized that there were words that should have been said long ago, but now everything is just the past. Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa were once a famous couple in Hollywood, admired by many and surrounded by friends in powerful circles. However, when they suddenly disappeared from the public eye, no one thought it was unusual. Why? Because they had always lived a very private life. After Hackman retired in 2004, he completely withdrew from Hollywood, even turning down the rare interview requests. The couple enjoyed a peaceful life, isolated from the spotlight, without any presence on social media. Family and friends rarely contacted them, and those closest to Hackman noticed that he became more reclusive, even distancing himself from people he had once been close to. Their neighbors didn't suspect anything unusual either. Hackman's property was located in a remote area of Santa Fe, and his seldom outings were nothing new, as he had always preferred to live in the shadows. The first person to uncover the truth was a maintenance worker, hired to check the house after no one responded to phone calls for several days. When he entered the estate, he discovered that Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa's world had fallen into a strange silence. Betsy Arakawa was found deceased, and her death raised many questions. However, Gene Hackman appeared unaffected and remained healthy. Despite the mystery surrounding her death, what puzzled people even more was the lack of any clear explanation for what had happened. Some speculated whether someone had entered the house and caused these events, but no definitive answers were found. The circumstances surrounding Betsy Arakawa's death remained shrouded in ambiguity. Gene Hackman, a legendary actor with a career spanning over 40 years, became famous for his roles in films such as Unforgiven, The French Connection, Superman, and The Royal Tenenbaums. However, after retiring, he chose to step away from the spotlight. Hackman stopped attending award ceremonies, avoided public events, and gradually distanced himself from many old friends in the film industry. The life of a man who once enjoyed immense glory and success has now faded into the silence of an abandoned mansion and the lonely years of his final days. When Hackman passed away, there were no family members by his side, no public tributes, and no emotional farewells from colleagues. Just silence, an unsolved mystery, and a cinematic legacy that will live on through generations. Gene Hackman will be remembered as one of the greatest actors in film history, with 2 Oscars and a legacy of timeless classic films. But will he also be remembered as a man who spent his final years in solitude, fading from the public eye, with no one ever truly knowing the full story of his life? Hackman's story serves as a poignant reminder of the fragility of life. No matter how successful you become or how brightly you shine, in the end, what matters most are the connections we have with others. When the spotlight fades, it is the people by your side that truly matter. For Gene Hackman, the light may have dimmed in solitude, but his legacy, with unforgettable performances, will live on through the ages. The story of Gene Hackman and the secrets hidden beneath his mansion will surely make you reflect. These strange discoveries not only reveal dark corners of a Hollywood legend's life, but also raise mysterious questions that remain unanswered. What do you think about these secrets? Could they change the way we perceive Hackman and his private life? Hollywood can turn ordinary people into legends, but it can also turn legends into lonely souls. The bright lights on the red carpet don't shine forever. And when they fade, many stars realize they have lost so much: friends, family, and real connections with the outside world. Gene Hackman and Dustin Hoffman, despite being prominent names, never truly stood together. They entered Hollywood through different paths and were placed into a rivalry they perhaps never wanted. Hollywood is not only a place that celebrates talent, but also a ruthless battlefield, where fame can be built and destroyed in an instant. Actors not only compete for roles, but also struggle to maintain their stardom in a sea of ambition. When Hackman and Hoffman began their careers, they were not strangers. Both came from New York, fighting for small roles, facing disappointing auditions, and enduring tough days trying to pay rent. But then, their paths diverged in different directions. Hackman quickly became one of Hollywood's top faces. With The French Connection, 1971, he won an Oscar and solidified his position among the finest talents. Subsequent films like The Conversation, Superman, and Unforgiven continued to affirm his reputation as one of the greatest actors of all time. Meanwhile, Hoffman struggled longer to achieve success. The Graduate, 1967, was his big breakthrough. But even after becoming a star, Hoffman was haunted by the need to constantly prove himself. He always felt like an outsider in a Hollywood filled with leading men. And Hackman, with his tough and rugged appearance, was the complete opposite of him. Was it Hollywood that initially placed them in opposition? The careers of Hackman and Hoffman have many similarities, but their personalities are completely different. Hackman is straightforward, somewhat blunt, and unafraid to express his opinions. Hoffman, on the other hand, is meticulous, anxious, and always feels the need to work harder to prove himself. Both are exceptional actors, but while Hackman seemed to achieve success naturally, Hoffman had to struggle every day to maintain his position. This inadvertently created an unavoidable rivalry between them, a quiet yet fierce competition. Hoffman once said in an interview, "Hollywood is not a place to make friends. It's a place to survive." Perhaps that's why, despite being friends, Hackman and Hoffman never truly stood together. They were too busy maintaining their positions in an unforgiving industry. One of the saddest things about Hollywood legends is the loneliness they often face in their later years. Hackman left Hollywood in 2004 without a formal farewell. He vanished from the spotlight, choosing a quiet life in Santa Fe with his wife, Betsy Arakawa. Those who worked with him described Hackman as someone who disliked the noise of Hollywood. But was that his choice? Or was it the only way for him to escape an industry that had drained him of his energy? Dustin Hoffman is still active in the film industry, but over time, he has appeared less frequently. Major films no longer come to him as they once did, and the friends who once stood by him have become few. Hackman was one of Hollywood's greatest actors, but when he stepped away from the spotlight, how many truly remembered him? When news of Hackman's passing was announced, tributes quickly flooded in from all corners. Yet, sadly, in his later years, he was no longer a part of Hollywood. He didn't attend prestigious award ceremonies, there were no special tributes, and he seemed to have been forgotten. The story of Hackman and Hoffman is not just about two old friends, but also a reflection of the harshness of Hollywood. It's a place that gave them everything: fame, wealth, recognition, but also a place that made them lose the most important things. Gene Hackman spent his life creating great characters, but in the end, when the lights dimmed, he was left with only loneliness. Dustin Hoffman wasn't much better off. When he said, "I should have reached out," it wasn't just regret about Hackman, but a late realization of his own solitude. Hollywood is a place full of glamour, but it's also a place that can take everything away. And sadly, even legends can't escape that cruel law. Hollywood has an unspoken rule: you either leave in glory or you're forgotten. Gene Hackman chose the latter. There was no official farewell, no grand tributes, no emotional final interviews. He disappeared completely from Hollywood, as if he had never existed in the industry at all. And that made Dustin Hoffman wonder if Hackman was truly content with that decision. In 2004, Gene Hackman performed his final role in Welcome to Mooseport, but no one knew that would be his last appearance. There was no retirement announcement or farewell press conference. He simply withdrew from Hollywood. Unlike legends such as Jack Nicholson or Robert Redford, Hackman severed all ties with the film industry, not attending events or accepting awards. Dustin Hoffman often wondered if Hackman was truly content with that decision. While Hackman chose a quiet life in Santa Fe, Hoffman felt that Hackman had given up too much. Hackman no longer needed the spotlight, but this left many questioning whether he regretted completely severing ties with Hollywood. However, Hoffman couldn't help but feel that Hackman had left behind too much. Other legends like Jack Nicholson, Robert Redford, and Clint Eastwood continued to maintain their presence, but Hackman chose to vanish completely. This made many wonder if he was simply tired of Hollywood or if there was a deeper reason behind his decision. Hackman is one of the greatest actors, but after leaving Hollywood, his name slowly faded. No one mentions him like they do Al Pacino or Robert De Niro. Hoffman regrets that Hackman never tried to return or be recognized once again. While it may have been Hackman's choice, that decision still left a void that's hard to fill, making us wonder if he truly left or was forgotten. Dustin Hoffman finally said the words that should have been said long ago, but by then, it couldn't change the past. Gene Hackman's passing wasn't just a loss for Hollywood, but also marked the end of a golden generation. An era when actors were not just performers on screen, but lived in each character. Hackman was one of the rare few who never tried to be a star. He simply focused on acting, on deep roles, on making the audience believe that he was the character, not just playing it. And now, Hollywood must say goodbye to one of the greatest actors it has ever had. Hoffman, who had shared the screen with countless legends and could transform into any character with absolute conviction, is now left with only one thing: regret. Not just regret for a once close relationship that is now faded. Not just regret for the years of distance, when both could have reconciled, but neither spoke up. But also regret that Hackman passed away without receiving a proper tribute from his old friend. Gene Hackman, Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Jack Nicholson. These names are not just icons, but marks of an irreplaceable era. They come from a generation where acting was everything, where Hollywood was not dominated by billion-dollar blockbusters or films heavily reliant on visual effects. Hackman was far more unique than his contemporaries. He didn't chase fame. He didn't appear on the red carpet unless absolutely necessary. He didn't engage in controversies or try to stand out. He was simply someone who loved acting and let his work speak for itself. But because of this, Hackman's departure made Hollywood feel emptier. When an actor like Hackman leaves this world, it's not just the loss of a person, but the passing of an entire era. An era where legends were remembered not just for their roles, but for how they immersed themselves in characters rather than striving to become stars. Hollywood will go on. New films will be made. New stars will rise. But there is one undeniable truth. There will never be another Gene Hackman. Dustin Hoffman understands this. And that's why, even though his words came too late, they are incredibly important. Gene Hackman is one of the greatest actors of all time. Gene Hackman may have left Hollywood before his life ended, but he will never truly disappear, because legends never have a sequel. Gene Hackman may have chosen to leave Hollywood, but Hollywood will never forget him. His films remain, his performances continue to inspire, and his legacy lives on. Hoffman may have spoken his words too late, but at least he spoke up to remind the world that Gene Hackman was not just a great actor, but an irreplaceable legend. Dustin Hoffman's final words about Gene Hackman's death revealed a shocking truth that many never expected. After years of silence, Hoffman opened up about the loss of his longtime friend and colleague, shedding light on a side of Hackman's life that few knew. While many assumed their friendship had faded due to the fierce competition in Hollywood, Hoffman's revelation added a deeper layer to their story. Hoffman admitted that while they had a close bond in their early years in Hollywood, there was something deeper behind Hackman's decision to retreat from the public eye. Hackman's departure from the spotlight wasn't just a choice to step away from fame. It was a deliberate effort to escape the toxic nature of Hollywood. Hackman, known for his private and reserved nature, always valued peace over the glamour of the industry. But even in his isolation, Hoffman realized that Hackman's life remained surrounded by unspoken complexities and regrets. Hoffman's revelation also pointed out that in his later years, Hackman wasn't entirely content with his choice to withdraw, and may have been seeking reconciliation in the quiet moments of his life. Hackman's death didn't just mark the end of a legendary career. It also marked the loss of a man who, despite his many accomplishments, carried the complexities of his personal choices. The shocking truth about Hackman's death, revealed through Hoffman's emotional reflection, shows how deeply their friendship and Hollywood itself were intertwined. It serves as a reminder that even the most legendary figures have regrets, that time is often our greatest enemy, and that sometimes certain friendships will never find closure. Thank you all for watching this video. Gene Hackman was not only a Hollywood legend, but also a cherished friend and colleague. Although he has stepped away from the spotlight, Hackman's legacy continues to live on in the hearts of fans and in the films he left behind. I hope these stories help us better understand what truly happened behind the scenes. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to keep up with more emotional stories. See you in the next video.